Ryan stood in the darkness with his hands tied behind his back, trying to understand what had happened. Only an hour ago he had been on a small science station with his team. Everything was peaceful. Everything was normal. Then alarms rang, bright lights flashed, and strange shapes moved through the smoke. Before he could reach anyone, he felt a sharp sting on his neck. Then everything turned black. Now he was awake, confused, and unable to move. The ground felt cold. It was not metal. It felt like stone. Dry air brushed across his face. He opened his eyes slowly. The sky above him looked strange. It was not blue. It was a pale yellow, as if a storm was trapped inside it. He tried to sit up, but something pushed him down. It was Luke, lying beside him, also tied up but awake. Ryan whispered to him. He asked if he was all right. Luke nodded slowly. He said he had no idea where they were, but he saw strange figures moving around before he passed out. Ryan asked about the others. Luke pointed with his chin to the side. Ryan looked and saw Claire, Mia, and Evan nearby. They were all tied up like him, lying on the ground but breathing. A loud clicking sound came from behind him. Ryan turned his head and froze. An alien figure stood only a few steps away. The creature was tall, covered in smooth dark plates, and his eyes glowed like amber fire. It did not look friendly. It looked like something meant for hunting, not talking. Beside it stood another creature, shorter, wearing a long robe and holding a glowing crystal. The short one began to speak in a strange language, a mix of buzzing and echoing tones. Ryan did not understand a single word, but the tone felt cold and proud, like someone giving orders. Then a small round drone floated above the humans. A bright light flashed across their faces, scanning them. The shorter alien checked the crystal, nodded, and spoke again. The tall one gave a deep growl and grabbed Ryan by the arm. With one strong pull, the alien dragged him to his feet. Ryan tried to resist, but he was too weak. The other humans were also lifted up one by one. Claire asked where they were being taken, but the aliens ignored her. Mia tried to ask why they were captured. The aliens did not answer. Evan tried to break free, but the tall alien hit him with the back of its hand. Evan fell to the ground, gasping, and the aliens forced him up again. The group was pushed toward a large metal ramp that led inside a strange machine. It was like a ship but shaped like a giant insect shell. The ramp closed behind them. The inside of the ship was dark and cold. They were guided into a round chamber with a smooth floor and walls that pulsed with a soft purple light. The short alien touched the wall. The chamber lit up, and a hologram appeared above them. The image showed a huge galaxy map. A bright point blinked far on the edge of the map. The alien pointed to it. Then the hologram zoomed in and revealed a rough-looking planet covered in storms and fire. The alien spoke again in its strange voice. Even if the humans did not understand the words, the meaning was clear. This was where they were being taken. Ryan felt a cold knot in his chest. Something was very wrong. He whispered to Claire that the planet looked hostile, maybe worse than any place humans had ever explored. Claire whispered back that she felt the same. The planet did not look like a place to visit. It looked like a place to die. The chamber doors shut. The walls hummed. Ryan felt the floor shake as the ship lifted off. None of them were given seats or restraints. They stood helpless as the ship climbed into space. Luke asked Mia if she remembered anything before being knocked out. She said she only remembered bright lights, strange gas, and one of the tall aliens grabbing her arm. Evan stared at the holomap. He said he heard rumors about alien councils, powerful groups that controlled many systems. If these aliens were part of such a council, then their plan was deliberate. Humans were not taken by accident. They were taken as part of something bigger. Hours passed. The ship was silent except for the steady hum. The aliens did not check on them. They did not feed them or give them water. They treated them like cargo, not living beings. Ryan kept watching for any chance to escape, but the chamber had no openings. When the ship finally landed, a heavy weight pushed down on them. The gravity was stronger than Earth. Each step felt harder. The doors opened, and the bright yellow sky flooded the chamber. The air smelled sharp, like hot iron. The tall alien grabbed Ryan again and dragged him outside. The others followed, pushed, and forced to move. When they stepped onto the ground, Ryan realized the surface was not simple rock. It was cracked, rough, and full of deep lines that glowed faint orange, as if heated from below. Storm clouds rolled far in the distance. Strange plants twisted like living wires. Sharp winds blew sand that sparkled like broken glass. The shorter alien raised its crystal again. The ground shook. A small platform rose from beneath the earth. The aliens forced the humans onto the platform. The tall alien aimed a strange device at the ground. A bright symbol burned into the stone. The shorter alien looked at the humans one last time. Its glowing eyes showed no care, no concern. Only disgust. Then, without warning, the platform dropped back into the ground. The humans stumbled onto the hot, cracked soil. When they looked up, the alien ship was already rising. Within seconds, it vanished into the yellow clouds. Evan shouted at the sky, asking why they were left here. But they all knew no answer would come. Ryan breathed slowly, trying to calm his racing heart. The air tasted harsh, but he could breathe it. Claire rubbed her wrists where the ropes had been. Luke scanned the horizon, trying to understand their surroundings. Mia knelt down and touched one of the glowing cracks. It was warm but not burning. She said the planet might have strong geothermal activity. Evan kicked a stone in frustration. He said the aliens dumped them here to die. Ryan said he agreed. He said he saw the way the aliens looked at them. It was not the look of a captor who planned to question them. It was the look of someone removing a problem. They looked around. There was no shelter, no water, no tools. Only the dry yellow sky and a ground that hummed like a sleeping giant. Claire said they needed to move before nightfall. If this world was dangerous during the day, it would be worse at night. Ryan agreed. He chose a direction where the land seemed less broken. As they began to walk, the wind grew stronger. It pushed against them with surprising force. Sand stung their skin. Luke wrapped part of his shirt around his face to shield himself. Mia stayed close to Claire, watching the ground for safe paths. After several minutes, they reached a cluster of tall stone formations. The stones were dark and smooth, almost like metal. Ryan tapped one. It made a deep echo. The stone was hollow inside. Evan suggested breaking it open, but Ryan said they should not waste time. They needed water and shelter first. They continued walking. The land became rougher. The glowing cracks widened. The air grew hotter. Claire said they could not continue like this. They needed shade. Ryan pointed to a half-buried ridge that looked like it might offer cover. As they moved toward it, a loud roar shook the air. The ground trembled under their feet. Mia screamed and jumped back. Something was moving beneath the cracked surface. Ryan shouted for everyone to run. A dark, worm-like creature burst out of the ground, long and covered in shiny plates. Its jaws opened wide, showing rows of sharp teeth. It lunged toward them. They scattered. Evan fell, but Luke grabbed him and pulled him away just in time. The creature crashed back into the ground and disappeared. Ryan said it was using the cracks to move underground. They needed to reach solid ground fast. They sprinted toward the ridge. The creature rose again, closer this time. Claire threw a rock at it, not to hurt it, but to distract it. The creature snapped at the rock, then swung toward Ryan. Ryan rolled aside, feeling the heat of the creature's breath. Luke and Evan reached the ridge first and shouted for the others to hurry. Mia ran as fast as she could, barely avoiding the creature's snapping jaws. Finally, they all reached the base of the ridge. The creature slammed into the stone wall, letting out a furious roar. But the stone held firm. The creature slithered back underground. The humans pressed themselves against the ridge, breathing hard. Ryan said they could not stay out in the open. Claire agreed. She said they had to find a crack or opening in the ridge to hide in. They searched the ridge wall, feeling every surface. Mia found a narrow opening behind a large rock. It led into a small cave, just big enough for all of them to sit inside. They crawled in. The cave was dark and cool. For the first time since landing, they felt safe. Ryan said they needed a plan. They could not stay here forever. They needed to understand this planet. They needed food, water, tools, and shelter. But first, they needed to rest. As they sat in the dim cave, listening to the faint hum of the ground outside, Ryan thought about the alien council. He wondered why they feared humans enough to send them here. He wondered what this place was. Deep in his mind, a strange feeling grew. The aliens thought this planet would kill them, but humans had survived worse in history. They had endured cold, heat, storms, and hunger. Maybe they could endure this too. He looked at his team. They were tired, afraid, but alive. He believed they could survive if they worked together, outside the cave. The wind howled across the yellow sky, and the planet watched its new visitors in silence. Ryan and the others stayed in the small cave, listening to the strange wind and the distant rumbles of the planet. Even though they had survived the first night, they knew they could not stay there forever. Food, water, and shelter were their main concerns. The planet looked hostile, and they had no idea where to find anything that could keep them alive for long. Mia was the first to speak. She said they needed to explore the land near the cave to find resources. Luke agreed but warned that they had to be careful. The creatures outside were dangerous, and the ground itself could be a threat. Claire suggested they make simple tools first. Ryan nodded. They could not move without preparing. They searched the cave for anything useful. Some stones could be shaped into cutting tools, and thick pieces of rock could serve as simple weapons. Mia used a piece of metal from their small equipment pack that had survived the crash to sharpen the stones. Evan gathered dry moss-like plants inside the cave. It was not much, but it might serve as a start for fire. Ryan drew a rough map of the area using a piece of charcoal and a flat stone. He tried to remember the path they had taken from the landing site. Luke suggested they mark their trail outside with small piles of stones so they would not get lost. Everyone agreed. After preparing some tools and marking their way, they stepped outside. The sunlight was sharp and made the ground glare. Claire shaded her eyes and scanned the horizon. The storm clouds in the distance were moving slowly, but the wind carried a sharp, burning taste. The cracked land stretched for miles, glowing faintly in some places. They had to move carefully. As they walked, Luke pointed to a group of tall rock formations ahead. He said it might be a safer place to take shelter during the day. The group agreed and moved cautiously toward it. The ground vibrated under their feet again. Mia whispered that it sounded like something was moving underground. Suddenly, a large predator erupted from a crack in the ground. It was massive, with long legs and a wide mouth filled with jagged teeth. The creature ran straight toward them. Evan froze, but Ryan shouted to move. Luke grabbed him and pulled him toward the rocks. Claire threw one of their sharpened stones at the creature, but it barely slowed it down. Mia picked up a larger rock and struck the creature's side. It let out a roar and retreated, disappearing back into the cracks. Everyone panted and leaned against the rocks to catch their breath. Ryan said they needed to keep moving and not stay in one place for too long. The group pressed on, careful to step only on solid ground. After a few hours, they found a shallow pool of water near the rocks. The water looked strange, with a faint orange glow, but it was cool to the touch. Mia tested it, and it did not burn or cause pain. They decided it was safe enough to drink in small amounts. They filled their containers and rested for a while, watching the strange clouds in the sky. Claire spotted unusual plants around the water. They were thick and had strange, glowing seeds. She suggested collecting a few for further study. Mia examined them closely and said they might be edible, but they needed to test them slowly. Ryan agreed that caution was important. The last thing they needed was to get sick on this hostile planet. As the sun moved, the shadows grew long. The group gathered small piles of rocks to mark their shelter and created a rough barrier to protect themselves from sudden attacks. Luke suggested making simple spears from strong rocks and sharpened sticks. Everyone helped. By evening, they had a small supply of weapons and a safer place to rest. Night came quickly. The temperature dropped, and the wind grew stronger. Strange sounds echoed through the land. The humans huddled together for warmth and comfort. Ryan kept watch at the entrance of the rocks while the others rested. The planet was alive, and every sound seemed to warn them of danger. Suddenly, a loud rumble shook the ground. Claire screamed as a small quake split the land near their shelter. A glow appeared in the cracks, and thick smoke rose. Luke grabbed everyone and pulled them deeper into the rocks. Mia checked their water supplies to make sure nothing had been contaminated. The quake lasted only a few minutes, but the warning was clear. This world was unpredictable and deadly. The next morning, Ryan suggested exploring further. They had survived one night, but they needed to understand the planet to stay alive. Evan found some strange markings on the rocks near the pool. They looked like carved symbols, not natural shapes. Claire wondered if the planet might have had intelligent life once. Mia said it was possible, but the symbols might also be natural formations. Luke reminded them to focus on survival first. The group moved toward the area where the markings were. They walked carefully, watching for moving cracks or hidden predators. The land was uneven and difficult, but the humans were learning to adapt. Ryan used his map to track their path. Every new area they explored gave them more information. Near the symbols, they found a small cave entrance. It was hidden behind a thick wall of rock. Inside, the cave was deeper than expected. The walls glowed faintly, and the temperature was cooler. Claire suggested this could be a good place for a longer-term shelter. Ryan agreed. They decided to explore the cave and check for dangers. Inside the cave, Mia found some strange plants growing near a small water seep. They were different from the ones outside. She tasted a tiny piece and found it edible. They collected some to eat later. Luke found stones that were unusually hard and shaped them into more weapons. Evan found a flat rock that could be used as a table or tool surface. While exploring deeper, Ryan noticed markings on the walls. They were different from the ones outside, more organized. He ran his fingers along the grooves and realized someone or something had created them intentionally. Claire speculated they might have been messages or warnings. The group agreed to copy the shapes in their map for later study. The cave provided safety, but it was not complete. Ryan said they needed to make a fire for warmth and light. They used the moss Mia collected, combined with dry sticks, and managed to create a small flame. The fire gave them comfort. It also allowed them to cook some of the edible plants safely. The first simple meal on the Deathworld felt like a small victory. Over the next few days, the humans explored the area near their new cave. They discovered strange animals that moved underground and occasionally burst through cracks. They observed these creatures and learned patterns to avoid them. Each day, they became stronger, faster, and more aware of their surroundings. Mia experimented with the glowing plants, mixing them with water to make a paste that could be used as medicine. Evan collected more water, ensuring they had enough for several days. Luke reinforced the cave entrance with heavy rocks to prevent attacks from larger predators. Claire kept detailed notes of every observation, marking the map with locations of resources, dangers, and strange phenomena. One afternoon, as they were exploring a ridge near the cave, Ryan spotted something unusual. There were large, partially buried structures in the distance. The shapes were too regular to be natural. The group walked closer and realized they were ruins, possibly built by a civilization that had lived on the planet long ago. The walls were cracked, and some pieces of metal and stone were scattered around. The humans approached carefully. The ruins felt alive in a strange way, as if the planet itself was watching. Luke touched a wall and felt a slight vibration. Mia found a small device embedded in the stone. It was old and did not work, but it looked like technology. Claire wondered if the planet had been home to intelligent life that might have disappeared. Due to a disaster, Ryan studied the ruins. He realized the planet might hold secrets that could help them survive. If they could learn how the previous inhabitants adapted, they might find ways to live more safely. The group decided to explore the ruins in the coming days. That night, the humans returned to their cave. They were tired but excited. For the first time, they felt hope. They had survived the initial dangers of the Deathworld, learned how to find food and water, and discovered ruins that could hold answers. The planet was still deadly, but they were no longer helpless. As they sat around their small fire, Ryan spoke quietly. He said the aliens who sent them here had underestimated humans. They had thought this world would be the end, but humans had survived worse and had the ability to adapt, to learn, and to fight back. The planet was harsh, but it was not unbeatable. Mia nodded and said they had to stay alert. Every day was a test, but they were improving. Claire said that knowledge would be their greatest weapon. Luke added that teamwork would keep them alive. Evan said they should plan each day carefully, moving only when necessary, and observing everything around them. The wind outside blew stronger that night. Strange sounds echoed through the land, reminding them that the Deathworld was still dangerous. But inside the cave, humans rested. They had survived, adapted, and started to understand the world around them. Hope grew alongside their fear, and determination burned as brightly as the small fire in the cave. The first part of their journey had ended. They had survived the landing, fought off predators, and found water, food, and shelter. But the planet was only beginning to reveal its secrets. The humans knew that their real challenge was only starting. They were on a death world, but humans had a way of surviving where others failed, and they would not give up, no matter what the planet threw at them. The next morning, Ryan woke before the others. He looked outside the cave and saw the pale yellow sky, the glowing cracks in the land, and the distant ruins. He knew the day would be dangerous, but it was time to explore. He woke Claire and Luke, while Mia and Evan still slept. Everyone prepared quickly, gathering the small tools, water, and food they had collected. The humans moved carefully toward the ruins. The cracked ground glowed faintly beneath their feet. They stepped only on solid rock, avoiding cracks that might hide predators. The closer they got, the larger the structures became. Broken walls rose like skeletons of a lost civilization. Strange patterns covered the stone, and faint metallic lines ran along some surfaces. Mia examined a plant growing through a crack. It had thick leaves and small glowing pods. She said it might be edible if cooked. Claire marked its location on the map. Evan found a small pile of stones arranged in a circle. It was not natural. Ryan suggested it might be some kind of marker left by the previous inhabitants. As they walked deeper into the ruins, they found the first sign of actual technology. A tall metal door was partially buried in stone. Strange symbols covered its surface. Luke tried pushing it, but it did not move. Ryan suggested they examine the edges. Using a simple lever and sharp stone, Luke cleared the debris. The door moved slightly, but it was stuck. Claire studied the symbols and realized some of them resembled patterns they had seen in the cave. She copied them onto her notes. Mia experimented with the symbols, touching them in different ways. Suddenly, the door shuddered and a small section slid open. The humans stared in surprise. They had not expected the door to respond so easily. Inside, the corridor was dark and cold. Ryan led the way, holding a stick with fire at the end to provide light. The walls pulsed faintly with energy. Evan shivered, saying the air felt strange. Mia checked the plants in the corridor and said they might be harmless, but they emitted a faint glow that made her uneasy. They walked for several minutes, exploring the corridor. Small chambers opened on either side. Some contained broken machines. Others had storage containers filled with strange seeds and dry materials. Claire suggested they collect what they could carry. Every small piece might help them survive or learn about the planet. Suddenly, a low rumble shook the corridor. Ryan shouted for everyone to stay calm. The rumble grew louder. The floor beneath them cracked, and a small creature burst out. It was similar to the one they had seen before, but smaller and faster. Luke used his spear to push it back, and Mia threw a heavy rock. The creature ran back into the shadows, but the warning was clear even inside the ruins. Danger was near. The humans pressed on. They reached a large chamber, unlike the corridors before. It had a high ceiling and a strange structure in the center. It looked like a device, covered in dust and vines. The metal was polished, unlike the rest of the ruins. Ryan approached carefully. He touched the surface and felt a faint vibration. The device seemed alive, waiting. Mia examined it more closely. She said it might be a power source. Evan suggested they not touch anything else until they understood it. Claire noted the shapes and markings on the walls. The patterns seemed to tell a story, perhaps of the people who built this place. Luke said they should find a way to use this device. If it could help them survive, it might be the key to living on the Deathworld. Ryan pushed a small panel on the device. A faint hum filled the chamber. Lights flickered along the walls. A map appeared, showing areas of the planet they had not seen. Symbols marked places that might contain water, plants, or resources. The humans stared in amazement. This device could give them an advantage. They could plan their movements more safely. They spent hours studying the chamber and the map. Claire recorded every detail, marking safe zones and dangerous areas. Mia collected some seeds and plant samples. Evan found a small compartment filled with tools, broken but repairable. Luke tested the device carefully. It reacted only to their touch, as if it recognized them. Ryan realized the device might have been designed for intelligent life that resembled humans. Night fell outside. The humans decided to rest inside the chamber. It was safer than the open ruins. They used small fires for warmth, careful not to damage the ancient technology. The sounds outside reminded them the planet was alive. The creatures moved under the surface, and the wind carried strange noises. They slept lightly, taking turns watching Dot in the morning. Ryan suggested exploring more of the ruins. They had found the central device, but the planet was large and dangerous. They needed more resources. As they moved, they discovered underground passages leading to smaller chambers. Each chamber contained more machines, plants, or traces of life. The humans felt they were uncovering a lost civilization bit by bit. Luke found a corridor that led to a large open space. The ceiling had collapsed in several places, allowing sunlight to enter. The floor had glowing lines running in patterns, similar to the device in the central chamber. Mia touched the lines, and they glowed brighter. Claire suggested marking this location on their map. Ryan agreed that understanding these patterns might help them survive. They spent the afternoon exploring and collecting resources. The ruins provided shelter, water, and plants. They made small improvements, moving rocks to block entrances from dangerous creatures. They repaired some of the machines with simple tools, learning to adapt and use what they found. Each discovery gave them hope. Suddenly, a loud rumble shook the ruins. The ground cracked near the entrance. A large predator burst in. It was bigger than any they had seen before. Its legs were long, and its jaws wide. Evan screamed, but Ryan shouted for everyone to stay together. Luke used a spear to defend, Mia threw rocks, and Claire guided them toward a side exit. The predator lunged, but the humans moved quickly. They escaped into another corridor. The group huddled together, hearts pounding. Ryan said this world would not give them rest. Every step, every choice mattered, but they had learned to survive. They had tools, knowledge, and teamwork. Even a predator could not stop them completely. The humans spent the next few days exploring more ruins. They discovered areas with water pools, edible plants, and strange energy sources. Claire documented everything, making detailed notes. Mia experimented with plants and seeds, finding ways to make food and medicine. Luke strengthened their shelters. Evan studied the ground and patterns, predicting where dangers might appear. One day, they found a large hall with symbols glowing faintly. The walls told the story of a civilization that had once ruled the planet. Ryan realized this civilization might have created the Deathworld as a defense system. Or perhaps it was a natural disaster that killed them. The humans could learn from the mistakes of the past. They discovered a small chamber with a device that could store energy. Ryan touched it and felt it respond. Luke helped move a few stones to reach it. Mia collected seeds and samples from the chamber. Claire noted the markings. Evan studied the energy lines, realizing they could channel power to other machines in the ruins. They had discovered a system, a network, that could aid their survival. As days passed, the humans grew stronger. They moved faster, understood the dangers, and used the ruins to their advantage. They found ways to trap small predators, collect water, and grow edible plants. The planet was still deadly, but humans were learning to control small parts of it. One afternoon, Ryan spotted movement in the distance. It looked like another group of creatures, larger and more organized than the others. Claire said they might be hunting. Luke suggested avoiding them and moving quietly. They crept along the ruins, using shadows and walls for cover. The creatures passed without noticing. Ryan realized humans had become clever, using intelligence rather than brute strength to survive. The group returned to the central chamber. As night fell, they felt stronger, more confident, and connected. They had survived predators, learned to use ancient devices, and discovered the ruined secrets. They had a plan and a path forward. Each human knew their role. Ryan led, Claire recorded. Mia experimented and provided food and medicine. Luke protected and repaired. Evan studied and predicted danger. As they sat around their small fire, Ryan thought about the aliens who sent them here. They had believed humans would die quickly, but humans had adapted, learned, and used intelligence and teamwork to survive. He knew that if they could continue this way, the planet would no longer be a death world for them. It would be a challenge, yes, but one they could meet. The wind blew outside, carrying the sounds of distant predators. The glowing cracks reminded them of the planet's power. But inside, humans were alive, growing stronger, and uncovering secrets that might change everything. The first stage of survival was complete. The humans were no longer helpless. They were learning, adapting, and beginning to understand the true nature of the death world.